Welcome to Talkin' Waukesha, the podcast where every conversation springs to life.
I'm Andrew Duchniak.
And I'm Anthony Terrell.
And we're your hosts for today's journey into the heart of Waukesha.
Whether you're a local or just passing through, join us as we explore the stories, people, and hidden gems that make Waukesha truly special.
From community events to personal anecdotes, we're here to bring you the pulse of our vibrant town.
So grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and let's dive into another episode of Talkin' Waukesha,
where every conversation springs to life. Welcome back to another episode of Talkin' Waukesha. We're here with Dan Duchniak, who's the general manager of the Waukesha Water Utility. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Doing good. Well. It's a lovely, dreary day outside, but, everything is pretty good for the most part. Start the timer.
Okay, this timer is just for us, so we know how long we're going.
Okay.
It's not.
I was like, did you not start?
Yeah. No, the recording. Yeah, recording's over there, just so we can every now and then glance. Like, we're doing good on time. So we're going to start off with a couple questions of, about you, and then eventually lead into the topic everyone wants to hear about the water transition project and how it is about a year out. But first, so what is a general manager for the Waukesha Water Utility, and then what does your typical day look like if there is kind of a typical day?
Well, yeah. If you can figure out what the general manager of the water utility is, then let me know. Yeah, the general manager of the water utility generally is the person in charge at the utility. Mm-hmm. I oversee operations, technical services, and administration. So I have 3 managers that report to me right now. It used to be 4. We had a human resources or assistant general manager that was that has recently retired. Mm-hmm. But 3 people that report to me, and then everybody at the utility reports up through them. So typically my day involves whether like in this time of year, working on the budget, working on the capital budget, the operations budget, working through that budgeting process, making sure mm-hmm. that our finances are all in order for the year. And, looking at operations wise, what are we going to, look at for projects for over the next year. We coordinate that a lot with the city and what they're doing with the streets and sewer and mm-hmm. and storm sewer projects. So we do a lot of coordination with the city on what projects we're going to do. But we also have projects that we look at where we have potentially a lot of main breaks that we want to replace, specific areas where the city may not be working, but we want to do some work. So we'll look at those also and look at that. And then operationally, making sure that we're meeting all the requirements. There's obviously a lot of regulatory requirements that mm-hmm. we are responsible for. We operate a little bit differently than the city because of the fact that we're governed by the Public Service Commission. Mm-hmm. So they oversee all of our operations and rules. So we have rules that are on file with the Public Service Commission that we have to operate by. And that basically ensures that we're going to treat every customer the same. Mm-hmm. So, we have to make sure that we're abiding by those rules and operating within those rules and within that structure. Same thing with rates and accounting. A lot of that is set by the Public Service Commission. So we have to apply for rates through the Public Service Commission. That's one thing where the public can know that they're protected. The Public Service Commission is always watching us and overseeing our books and our operations and making sure that our rates are set appropriately for our residents and for our businesses here in the city. Mm-hmm. And then operationally making sure that we have safe water that's delivered to all of our residents. And we have, again, requirements set by the DNR mm-hmm. with regards to the water quality and how that water is delivered to our customers. So, I'm a typical day. There really is not a typical day.
I could imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it could be like I said, this time of year, budgeting, operationally looking at how water is delivered, what projects we're going to do, what's important, what's not important, mm-hmm. trying to balance, there's always projects that you'd like to do, and that the staff will bring to you and that they would want to do. But there's you always, as a manager, you're looking at the difference between wants and needs and what is needed by this utility and what is wanted by some of the staff. And we have to address our needs and what is important first.
Right.
And then if there's additional areas that we can do some work in or fund, then we'll look at those areas. But generally, for people who don't know, we are not a department of the city, so we operate a little bit differently than the city. We operate under a commission. There's a 7-member commission. There's the mayor and aldermen and 5 citizens that are appointed by the common council. So we operate under that board and those citizens, and they set. They work with us to set our rates, priorities. They are responsible for wage and benefits for our employees. So we fall separately from the city. We're not under the city budget necessarily because we have our own budget and we have our own revenue stream through the water.
Right.
So we operate a little bit independently, but then when there's major projects coming along, the common council still has to approve any major public works contract. So those come through the council. So we work with the city a lot in terms of what's happening in the streets and the roads and water and sewer and collection. People always, we always say at the utility, people don't know that there's a problem with the water until they turn on the faucet and there's no water.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things. So it's how I kind of view the water utility and kind of the library in the same way. Is like you're the cousins of the city themselves. Like you're here, your family,
right?
But you have a different household that kind of helps direct you in the right directions.
And we're owned by the city,
right.
So the city owns us. So they, the mayor and common council appoint our board. So if they don't like the direction we're going or what we're doing, they're going to look at the members of our board and reappoint. Put some members there that are going to see things the same way they do. But I think we operate pretty efficiently, pretty effectively, and it's been I've been here for 22 years. It's been a pretty good ride. So
yeah. So going back a little bit to the commissions that you were talking about that kind of oversee the rates, is that a state level commission? Is that just kind of a national commission? Like, is there what kind of oversight does that kind of help
Sure.
with?
So the Public Service Commission is the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin.
Okay.
So it's a Wisconsin commission. The governor appoints the members. There's 3 commissioners, and then obviously there's a staff underneath those commissioners. So the governor appoints those, and they oversee our rates. So they approve what we can and can't do. Some of those rate decisions are delegated to staff. So the staff can make decisions as long as they're within the guidelines of how the Public Service Commission operates. If you want something different or there's a large project like with our Great Lakes project, then those have to go to the Public Service Commission themselves and will be in front of the commission. For any large projects also, we have to go to get construction authorization. So we have to, before we start and do anything, we can do planning and do engineering, but then we must submit those plans and get construction authorization for any large projects that we have to put forth. So when we went for the Great Lakes project, we had to go get construction authorization. And we had to go through the commission, and they had a hearing, and then they make their decision as to whether or not we can move forward. So
with that one, do you start with that commission first before you go to anyone who'd be kind of affected by it? So, the pipeline went through like New Berlin. Did you have to go to the commission first, and then you come back and start talking to the neighbors saying, hey, we gotta bring a pipeline through your land. How can we make this work? I mean, I imagine it's way more complicated than that.
That's a good question. Generally, we'd start with some of the engineering. We'd have to have some of the engineering done and some of the plans done to submit to them before we can move forward and actually then bid it out and move forward with constructing it. So we have to go through all the planning stages of it, and then we submit that. So like with the Milwaukee project or with the Great Lakes project, initially, we went to the Public Service Commission with the city of Oak Creek as our water supplier and the return flow to the Root River. And ultimately, then Milwaukee came and wanted to sell us water. We did all the analysis, went back to the Public Service Commission and said, this is why we want to switch suppliers. In that case, we also had to go back to the Council of Great Lakes Governors and say we wanted to switch suppliers also. But, in this case, we had to go back to the commission and say, these are the reasons why we want to switch. And if it's going to cost your residents more money, they're going to question it and they're going to, they're going to probably not approve it. But in this case, it was about a little over $200 a year per resident that was saved. So they ultimately approved it.
It's always a great saving. Yeah, savings is always a great word when it comes to being a resident.
Yeah.
Correct, and that's what the PSC, the Public Service Commission, is there for. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our customers to operate in a manner that is cost effective and efficient, and the Public Service Commission oversees that and makes sure that we're operating within those guidelines.
Perfect.
So you said you've been working for the water utility for 22 years, correct?
Correct.
So how did you get involved then in being a part of that? Like, it's a long journey you've had.
And it's an interesting story. So my career goes back to 1990. Before I graduated from school, I worked in the city of Franklin for 2 years. In their engineering department and as their first intern, and worked under John Bennett, who was their director of public works, who was one of my mentors, and I learned a lot from him. But I interned there, and my first job was in the city of Racine. And I worked in the city of Racine for 4 years, and the first couple of years I worked in the public works department. And I hated it. I did not like what I was doing. I did not like my job. I thought it was a waste of 5 years going to school and getting my engineering degree. And I was like, what am I doing? I didn't really like it. My wife and I still joke to this day. At Racine City Hall at the time when I was there, they'd play music. And as soon as the music turned off, you knew the day was over. And if I'd be talking to her on the phone, I'd say, music's off, gotta go. I'd be like out of there. And it was an interesting, I was able to work my way into some interesting projects. I did the river walk in Racine, the walkway, I did that. I did the downtown redevelopment where we demoed a lot of buildings and businesses and reconstructed streets and set up the area for redevelopment. So those were projects that I was really interested in, but my normal day job there was just street reconstruction, and I just thought it was boring.
Say asphalt can only be so interesting.
right. I was really bored, and so the first couple of years I just didn't know what I was going to do. Had the opportunity to go to the water and wastewater utility there, took it, and just loved it. Absolutely loved it. My first project in Racine at the wastewater utility was a grit room upgrade. And the grit room is the first room that the raw sewage comes into when it comes into a clean water plant where you're treating the wastewater. And so it's not the best smelling room in the world.
I can only imagine.
But the project was to keep those odors down at the trough where the water was flowing through. So I had to close up the room, keep positive air pressure, and keep the odors down by the stream of water flow. And after I was done, very little smell in there. And I fell in love with the way that wastewater was treated, the growing of bugs, the eating of the organic material, and the processing of clean water and how it cleaned up and how it got discharged. And then I worked with the water utility also and got to know their plant. And the one way I got to know their plant was we were automating their treatment plant at the time. And me and another engineer went to classes in school and learned how to program logic controllers. And we worked with the operators in detail on setting up the logic to run the treatment plant. And so I was fascinated with the treatment process, both on the water and wastewater side, and loved it. I worked there for 4 years and had the opportunity to go to the city of Oak Creek. And I went to the city of Oak Creek, and it was starting up their engineering division. And I worked there for 9 years, did a number of different projects. At the time, that was when cryptosporidium happened in Milwaukee. I wasn't ever at a utility where we had a cryptosporidium problem. That's one of my claims to fame. I left Racine before they had their problem, and Oak Creek didn't have a problem. So anyway, we went to put a new intake into Lake Michigan when that happened. So we got out of the influences, thought that was fascinating. Did a treatment plant expansion, did put in reservoirs, booster pump stations, negotiated a contract with the city of Franklin to provide the city of Franklin with water. So, and I have another interesting story about that. But so I negotiated the contract from Oak Creek's perspective with the city of Franklin to provide them with water. So I had that experience with going through that. I also, Oak Creek had won a national water taste competition, and one day my boss came in and said, we should look at bottling our water. So I said, hey, if you want me to look into it, I'll look into it. Went out, found a bottling company, Black Bear Soda, who is now owned by Sprecher, and partnered up with them, moved them into the city of Oak Creek. We bought a building. We relocated them in the city of Oak Creek. We bottled the water, and they sold the water retail. So we were making, a little over $100,000 a year at the time.
Wow.
Just selling the rights for them to sell water. And
Wow.
So I got involved in some really interesting projects. I really enjoyed my time in Oak Creek, and our labor attorney in Oak Creek came to me and asked me, hey, I work for this city, and I work for the city of Waukesha, and they're looking for a manager. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, not really. I'm really enjoying my time here. Have a lot of really cool projects going on. I don't know that I'm really interested. He goes, do me a favor, just go in an interview. Okay, I'll go interview. I was late to my first interview because I got stopped by a train coming through the city of
All right, that checks out.
All right.
Check that box. Got stopped by a train, got to the interview. I was late. Wasn't really interested in the job. Found out about Waukesha. I interviewed with staff the first time, found out what the challenges were, what they were looking at. And I was like, this might be kind of interesting. Ultimately went through the process and was offered the position. And I took the position, and lo and behold, here we are 22 years later. And I started in January, early January of 2003, and we're coming up in 2025, and I've been here for a while. Been through a lot with this. But the thing that intrigued me about it was the issue that they were facing. They were under a court order to come into compliance with the radium standards. At the time, they were fighting in the courts the way the standard was created. So I was, intrigued about that. What are they going to do? How these standards are created? Getting involved on a national level. And I had come in here thinking, hey, this is just going to be, install some radium treatment at some wells, do a bunch of projects, and get the quality where it needs to be, and then oversee the system, and I have the opportunity to be the manager there. And I knew in Oak Creek, I was the assistant general manager, and the manager at the time wasn't that much older than me. So my opportunity to become general manager in Oak Creek was going to be a while.
Right.
And so I thought, well, if this is an opportunity, it's a larger city. And they have issues they're facing, something that I kind of like. I like to work my way and solve problems, and that's just what I've always done that throughout my career.
Right.
And that's what I like to do. So I saw the opportunity here. I had no idea it was going to turn into what it turned into.
So you signed up for a big bill that you weren't expecting there.
They didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
So, and it was just an interesting time. And that's how I ultimately got here, was because we had this water issue that we were facing. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to work through that process and solve an issue for our community and ensure that they had the water supply that they needed for their future.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense that it's not only just, we need to, solve some challenges, but it's a challenge that, like you said, your first job you didn't enjoy as much because it's reconstructing road. The solution is grind new asphalt. That's it.
Yep.
Radium, and there's a little bit more to it. And is it just a simple fix? And lo and behold, it wasn't just a simple fix. And
exactly,
got you to be a world traveler around the Great Lakes and chatting with
that's true.
Exactly.
What is it? Two, 3 provinces and 8 states, 7 states.
2 provinces, 8 states. Yep. It was a very interesting process.
So in your career here in Waukesha, we'll just limit it to the last 22
Sure.
years. What's been your favorite part about working for the water utility?
Well, obviously the people. When I came to the Waukesha Water Utility, there was really, the morale was really low. They had walked out the general manager at the time. They had walked out the technical services manager and an operations manager. So there was like 3 people that they had walked out. The commission had decided that they wanted to make a change, that they weren't going in the direction they wanted to, and there was a lot of morale issues when I got to the utility. And we've been able to build up a really good group of people, and I really enjoy interacting with the individuals, all the operators, all of our employees, the operators, the management, the office staff. I enjoy interacting with them, and it almost feels like it's a family there. It's a family environment. Yeah. There's 20 or 30 people, close to 30 employees, and everybody cares about one another. Everybody's willing to step up and do what they want to do what they need to do to make the utility successful. So I really enjoy the people there at the utility. On the technical side of things, obviously it was the water situation. I was intrigued with what needed to be done. Again, like I said, I did not know that it was going to be the Great Lakes. I thought it was going to be put in radium treatment. I knew radium treatment was available, and I thought that's what it was going to be. I spent the first probably 3 to 4 months at the utility reading through all the studies and everything that was available with regards to radium and water supply, and understanding the legal process that we were going through to challenge the lawsuit. And it was just, I was very intrigued with it. But then I also spent my time, walking around the utility, finding out what people did, finding out what issues were, addressing, getting the utility, the commission to address those issues. We made some major changes in our policies and in our employee manual at the time, and really brought people together, implemented systems that people understood how they were going to be compensated, how their benefits were going to be given to them. To this day that system is in place, and we get employees involved, and it really helps when they're part of the solution. But then again, so I'm going back, I'm reading through all this material, and I came to the conclusion that it really, when you started looking at everything, it really wasn't just about radium. And that's what kind of was the crux of the issue. Radium was what started the issue and was the impetus to the problem, and got us to understand the problem. But the problem wasn't just about radium. It was about the long-term sustainability of our water supply. And how we wanted to address that. And we could have installed radium treatment, and we would have spent $100 million putting radium treatment on our wells. However, we'd have been in the place where we were at, 20 to 30 years out. It would have been a Band-Aid. We would have still had this water volume, this sustainability issue with our aquifers. We were having a lot of problems with our wells at the time. Wells were failing, motors were failing, the wells themselves were failing. We were not only running into radium, but there were other issues that we were running into. Basically, when you get far down in the aquifer, it becomes salt water. So we had brackish water that we were running into. It was just, there was a lot of different issues that we were running into that the public wasn't fully aware of. And so when you looked at it and you took a step back, you kind of thought to yourself, why are we fighting the rules? Why are we doing this? And in my 3rd or 4th month here, I went to the Common Council and was in a closed session with them. And they were deciding whether they wanted to take the challenge of the regulations to the Supreme Court because the United States Appeals Court had ruled against us. And they were deciding whether they wanted to go to the Supreme Court and fight this standard or not. And I went into the closed session with our commission president, and I talked, and I just said, here's the deal. We can fight this, and we can win, but it doesn't resolve our issue.
Right.
And so if we win, we're still in the same place. Yeah, we can say we won and we can delay things, but we're still in the same place. We have a long-term sustainability issue that we need to address. So we need to look and see what our options are. And the Common Council ultimately agreed with me.
Good.
And we went along this dual path. We were looking at groundwater options and the Great Lakes options because at the time, the Great Lakes, we didn't really know if it was available to us or not. So we went down that dual path and ultimately led to the Great Lakes Compact being negotiated and developed, which we were heavily involved in. Then ultimately led to our application, 6 years of review of an environmental impact statement, looking at all of our options and going through everything. Again, I don't know that people fully understand that there was over 3,000 pages of documentation that went into this application.
Just some light reading.
Yeah. Looking at all the different alternatives. And, people I don't think understood that there was that much work that went into this.
Right.
Ultimately leading us to the conclusion that, look, we have this body of water that's 15 miles to the east of us. And it's sustainable for the long term if we put the water back.
Right.
Why don't we look at using that and look at potentially having that as our source? And then we went through all the process and ultimately got to where we are today, where we have Great Lakes water. So it's been a challenge. The Common Council has been great through this entire process. The commission has been incredible to work with throughout this process. They trusted in me, and they trusted in our staff and the consultant team we had, that we ultimately were able to get to the conclusion where we are. And now the residents of Waukesha won't ever have to worry about their water supply again, which is what we wanted at the onset of this, was to have a long-term sustainable water supply that the residents could count on. Does it cost more? Absolutely. Is it worth it? It's worth every penny. If you look around the nation, the amount that we're paying for water is not really that significant, and I believe it was, and it is the best long-term solution for our city. So I was happy that I got to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's great. And I know there's a lot of people like, oh, we're using a lot of water from Lake Michigan. But I mean, my favorite fact that I saw on the Great Lakes Alliance website was the amount of water that the city utilizes is the amount of water that evaporates from Lake Michigan in 7 seconds, which is
That's insane.
mind-boggling. But
Yeah.
it puts a scale of how big Lake Michigan and all the Great Lakes are.
Right. The other fact that's really interesting is if you take an Olympic-sized swimming pool, it is the equivalent to 1 teaspoon of water, the amount that we're pulling out.
Wow.
It's the equivalent to taking 1 teaspoon of water out of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Oh, and by the way, we put it back.
Yeah. And 100% I'd rather drink our water than Olympic swimming pool water.
Absolutely. I agree.
So, as we were saying, it's been just about 1 year since we switched to Great Lakes water. How has the transition gone overall? I mean, has there been any unexpected challenges or even just unexpected successes?
Well, the transition could not have gone better. Our staff and our consultant team really worked their butts off to try to put together a plan that they could systematically work through the distribution system and try to keep disruptions to a minimum. So we all know what happened in Flint. We all know what happened in some other areas throughout the country where lead was an issue and water quality was an issue when people did transitions and didn't study it. So we were very aware of that. We took our time and spent the money to do the studies we needed to do. We actually harvested pipes from people's homes with lead, solder, and lead in them. We harvested water services we pulled them out of the ground, replaced them, and kept the pipes so that we could put them in a pipe loop apparatus where we could put our water and then ultimately Great Lakes water through them. And we could monitor and see what was going to happen with that water quality. There are so many things that can happen when you're changing a water system from groundwater to surface water and changing just the chemistry in the water. A change in pH can affect and disrupt water quality in a system tremendously. So we had to fully understand what was going to happen. And we took the time, and again, our guys at the water utility built this apparatus themselves, and Milwaukee still uses it today. And we were able to put in pipes, and we were able to study exactly how it was going to happen. So then we knew how our water quality was going to be impacted, but we also knew how we were going to have to transition that water and how we were going to have to prepare our system to accept that water. So before, the few years before, while we were under construction, we were in the process of preparing our system. Not only did people have to put up with the construction of the Great Lakes project throughout the region and locally here, but they also had to put up with the flushing that we did and the disruption to water quality and color and aesthetics. And so we worked through that process and worked through our system. And then the day came that we had to actually turn on the pump, which was October 9th. And it was a funny story about that day. The mayor, I, and the president of our commission were there. And I said, okay, mayor, go ahead, push the button. And he's like, I'm not pushing that button. He goes, if it doesn't work, I don't want to be blamed for it. He goes, you get up there and push that button. So I pushed the button and started the pumps. And our guys had a system in place that they had worked on. Our operations manager and our technical services manager and our operations department put together a plan. They knew what hydrants had to be opened up. They knew what valves had to be turned. They knew what order they had to work it in. They also knew that if we stopped and we just let it sit overnight, that wouldn't be good for water quality. So they committed to working 24/7 around the clock to getting this done. They broke up into shifts, and they wanted to keep water moving. And so they worked systematically through our system and got 90% of our residents switched over within 5 days, and I believe it was 11 days till everybody was switched over. And those 11 days, again, those were all the cul-de-sacs and dead-end mains that we had to go back and push water through. But, kudos to our guys for working their butts off and getting this done in the time that they did. And then the public was so interested. We did our job and got information out to the public about, odors that they were going to smell the chlorine. There's potential red water. These are the issues that could come up when this transition took place. And so if something was happening, the public already knew how to do that. Even though we minimized, they knew how to address it. It was funny. You could look on Facebook or Twitter and see somebody put a complaint out there, and you'd see 10, 12 residents respond and say, well, this is what you have to do. Just flush the water, let it run until it clears up, and you're good. And so then we had our technical services department put together a map where our guys were out in the field with iPads, and we were switching from chlorine to chloramines. And so our guys would test for chloramines, and as soon as they'd put in a positive that we had 80% chloramines, they would go it would go in their iPad, which would automatically go back to our office, and a blue dot would show up on the hydrant. And so you saw these blue dots moving across our system, so people would know when they had the water. We should have sold advertising on our website for those days. We could have made some money.
So there was a lot of people visiting. I remember even in City Hall, we had that map up, and it was getting refreshing every minute.
It was crazy.
It went blue so much quicker than I expected it to.
Yeah. It was, but that's kudos again to our staff and our guys. I mean, I wasn't out there. I didn't open up a hydrant at all. I pressed a button. I didn't do any of this work. All our guys did, and they did a tremendous job. And so it was really the project was a great success from that standpoint. The planning, the transition, everything that we've done. On the negative side, we've had, we put up a new elevated storage tank. We were, the central zone is our largest zone, which is basically east of the Fox River, is kind of the easiest way to explain it. We put up a new elevated storage tank to address some low water pressure issues, and that led to some higher pressure in some of the areas. They already had high pressure. We raised the pressure by about 3 or 4 psi, but that 3 or 4 psi, caused some concerns among some of the people. The issue is that on the private side with plumbing, you have, if your system is over 80 psi, you should have a pressure reducing valve in your home. Most people, they had over 80 psi, and that did not get installed on the private side. And when we raised it, some of the plumbers were out there, explaining this to people, and people were calling the water utility and saying, well, aren't you going to put in these pressure reducing valves for us? And it's a private side issue. It's something that should have been done when they built their homes. And it wasn't, unfortunately. And we can operate our system between, 35 and 100 psi. So we were operating our system according to all of our regulations. It's just on the plumbing code didn't match that. It doesn't match our regulations. So there are some residents that have had to put in some pressure reducing valves in their homes. I've talked to a number of people that have questioned me on that and asked me about it. I've explained the whole situation to them, and just recommended that they contact a number of different plumbers out there, because unfortunately there's some plumbers out there that are charging a lot more than they should for these pressure reducing valves. You should be able to get it installed in your home for probably around $300 to $400. And some people were charging in excess of $1,000. So, we were that was one of the unfortunate things that came out. But overall, our system is better, and I think we're past that. Now that we're a year into it, I think we're past that. I think from my standpoint, the calls that we get at the utility are 10 to 1 thanking us for the Great Lakes water and thanking us for the water quality. People are really happy with the water quality. Water softeners, you don't need your water softener. It's at that point where it's not soft water, but it's not aesthetically unpleasing.
Right.
So there's, a lot of people that utilize Great Lakes water in southeastern Wisconsin. Very few have water softeners. If you want to maintain your water softener, you just need to optimize it, make sure that your softener understands the quality of water that's coming in. If you want to get rid of it, and you bypassed it and you tested it and you said, hey, I'm good without it, I would recommend physically removing the water softener, because you don't want that to be a failure point at some point in the future. So there's a lot of people that are removing their water softeners, which is really good for our clean water plant.
Great,
because because we're putting less chlorides into the system and discharging less chlorides. So overall, it's better for the environment. It's kind of funny. It seems like the people are 2 categories: the lifelong residents of Waukesha that have been here always and always had softened water and like that softened water, and then the residents that are transplants that probably came from a Great Lakes community and came out here with groundwater, and now that they have Great Lakes water, they're immediately getting rid of their water softener. The one story I will say that we had we did not soften our water at the utility, and we had a dishwasher, and our dishwasher was full of all the white lime on the inside. Probably 3 washes after that, it cleaned up and it looked like it was brand new.
Wow.
So there's
awesome.
very little water spots, very little hardness in the water, and it cleaned it up. What I tell residents all the time: your washing machines, your hot water heaters, your dishwashers, all those appliances are going to last a lot longer now because of the quality of the water.
Even the pipe work, if you've got, I've got stainless steel pipes at my house, and yeah, look at some of the natural buildup of the pipes degrading, but there's not going to be calcium and other things going
Right.
in and adding to that buildup now.
You might get a little water spot on your faucet, but if you use your towel, and it'll wipe
Yeah.
right off, and it'll be.
I mean, I grew up with hard water. We had barium in the water, so I mean, I'm moving up. I lived in northern Illinois, and so moving here, like having Great Lakes water, living in Milwaukee, and then having the water here, it's night and day, the difference between everything.
Yep. I don't think people realize everything that goes into bringing that product to your faucet. People just expect that when they get up in the morning, they can turn the faucet on and water's going to come out. They can brush their teeth. They can go to the bathroom, flush the toilet, but water's going to be there. It's going to go away. They can take a shower, turn on the shower, water's going to be there. People don't realize all the network that exists underground to get it to you. And then every drop that comes out of that faucet, comes out of the shower head, comes out of the sinks in your kitchen, every drop is, you can consume every drop of water that comes out. So, it's all safe for you to drink, and I think there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes,
Right.
to get that to the residents of our city.
And especially, I mean, there's been studies on with all the water that's going in and out of Lake Michigan, and it's some of the purest water that's, I think it's top 10 in the world of the purest water that's coming in and out of, especially Milwaukee.
It's
fantastic.
It's crazy. It's really high quality water, and we're really lucky to have it here. And like I said, we won't have to worry about it for generations to come. So
While it's not Swiss Alps water, it's pretty darn close.
One other success too I wanted to bring up. I remember because the crews were out, the 24/7 flushing everything out. Because that was so efficient too, when everyone finally did go to the Great Lakes water, I remember hearing people being like, "Did we get it?" Because there was no redness for some people, there was no smell for any of it. I know my dad, he lives right across the street from the new water tower, so he was I think they were one of the first people that got it. And he kept asking me, he's like, "Did we get it? Did it switch over yet? I don't have this red water. I don't have any of this." And I was like, "No, they were just really efficient on everything."
Right. It went so well. They really controlled the velocity in the system so that we didn't have those surges and didn't spark up all that red water. But also, if you didn't have your water faucet on at the right time or anything, you weren't going to get those odors. So we wanted people to be aware. These are the things that can go wrong, and these are things you might see. Don't be alarmed. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to do any harm to you. Just run the water. It'll clear up, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think we had one person that called and said that they could smell the chlorine. Flushed it for a while, and they said it was fine. So
I was even hunting for it at City Hall. I'm like, all right, one of these times it's gonna taste a little bit of chlorine. I'm like, I think one of the times I might have, like, is that chlorine, or is I just thinking I see it's chlorine? I'm like, it's not significant enough. Like, fine, just keep drinking water as normal.
Keep going.
Yeah. So, are there any myths or misinformation about the water change that you've noticed or that you keep hearing over and over again that you want to debunk?
No, I don't think so. I think people are, everybody's always concerned, or something that always came up was the cryptosporidium issue, because we were getting it from Milwaukee, and Milwaukee had that issue. It's hard to believe that it was, 30 or 40 years ago that happened. But Milwaukee has put in ozone treatment. They have put in those second barriers so that they won't have that problem. They've moved their intakes out into the lake. I think Milwaukee did that. Green Bay, Oak Creek, Racine, Kenosha, all did the same things. They all put in their second barriers. They all moved their intakes out of those zones of influence where cryptosporidium could be coming from. So I think, to say, one thing that I like to say, but I don't like to say, is that cryptosporidium was a bad thing that happened, but it was one of the best things that happened to the water industry, because it really brought an awareness of how important protecting your source of water and treating it properly was. And you need to make those investments in your system to ensure that you're going to have that high quality water.
Right.
And that forced a lot of utilities to invest in their systems. throughout the country. So it was really good. The same thing that lead service, the Flint, Michigan issue came up, and the lead in the service lines. People are looking at removing the lead from their systems and making sure it's all out. Happy to report in Waukesha, we do not have any lead services. We were able to get those out over the last 20 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we have no lead services all the way up to the meter in the home. So any lead that exists is going to be existing on the private side of after the meter. So we're really happy with that. But again, these issues form an awareness for the industry, and there's a lot of people in the industry that are addressing the lead issue right now. There's ways to do it chemically. We add, Milwaukee adds an orthophosphate. So we understand that while we have no lead in our system, the residents in the city of Waukesha potentially have lead in their system, whether it's lead solder in their pipes or whether it's fixtures that have lead in it. We know that they have it in there. So there's an orthophosphate that's fed that is a residual that coats the pipes that prevents that lead from leaching off into the water source. So again, we're always aware of what is the quality of the water coming out of the tap, because we are responsible for the water up until it comes out of the tap. And so we're always aware, we're always testing, that water quality, making sure that it's a consumable product for our residents and for our businesses, because it's a very important piece of any city. And we're lucky that we have Great Lakes water, and again, that we won't have to worry about our water supply for the long term.
And what does that testing kind of look like?
So we do sampling, quarterly sampling. We do lead and copper sampling every year. There's tons of different tests that we do every day. Also, we do quality control on our chlorine and pneumonia that we're putting in. We have monitoring systems that we're installing. We have them inline monitoring at the booster pump station, where we've installed 3 systems out in the distribution system that we're monitoring water quality constantly. They're inline. They're constantly providing feedback to the operators so that they know what the water quality is out in the system. We're also, we found over this last year that the chloramines actually in warm water degrade a lot faster than we would have liked. So we're putting in chloramine booster treatment, or being able to boost chloramines out in our distribution system at strategic locations in our system, so that we don't have to feed it. So chloramines don't have to be as high at our BPS. We can lower the chloramine residual from our BPS, knowing that we'll be able to boost it up out in our distribution system at these booster stations or other strategic areas in our system. So we're working on those as we speak. We're putting them in. By next year, we should have those in, so we won't have to boost the chloramine. I think one of the things you asked about challenges, I think another challenge was the water quality throughout the year. When you get groundwater, you're getting water at 68 degrees. Pull it up from the ground, it's going to be 68 degrees, and you always have 68-degree water. So you're used to, you know what the temperature is going to be. With the Great Lakes, that temperature varies from the mid-30s to 70. So in the mid-30s, your residuals are going to last longer because the water's colder. In the 70s, your residuals is not going to last as long, and you may need to boost it up. So it's just kind of interesting. Our guys, there's a big learning curve. And, the first year was a big learning curve. We were constantly in communications with Milwaukee staff, just asking questions. Hey, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing a low residual. What do you got to, we're boosting it up. What do you think? What's going on? And they said, no, that's common in the distribution system. When you have the far reaches of your system, it's going to be degrading. And our guys were learning a lot about chloramines and how they react, how it reacted in our system. So
you almost have a full set of data now for we'll need more chloramines in the summer and less in the winter, and be able to adjust everything accordingly.
And we've been able to talk to other utilities that utilize Milwaukee water and have chloramines, and you kind of find out there's around 50 degrees, you want to start boosting it up, and then when it gets below 50 degrees, you start pulling back, and that's what you kind of learn that going through it the first year. So it's been an interesting process.
Right. I love the biology and chemistry that kind of all goes into how do we get water from 20 miles away here in the same quality that it needs to be so it's very similar to any other situation. And how do we make it, in household A on the east side matching household B on the west side, being almost identical kind of water quality.
Right. And every drop that comes out of the faucet needs to be able to be consumed by anybody, by any consumer. So that is one thing, it's really nice not having those radium notices in our bills anymore.
So then I guess what's the next big project for the water utility?
That is interesting. So now, we have a few things going on. We've had all these wells historically throughout our system, and we don't need those wells anymore. Mm-hmm. So we are working on abandoning all of the facilities and decommissioning those facilities and putting them all back out on the market, or working with community development. If we can sell the properties, we'll sell the properties, and we'll decommission after we decommission the sites. The other thing that we're working on is we're looking at a new operations center for the utility. Mm-hmm. So all of the facilities we would store all equipment around the city that we would utilize in our daily operations.
Right.
And now we're getting rid of those sites. Everything's got to come back to one common location. Mm-hmm. We don't have the room in our existing facility, plus our existing facility is over 100 years old.
Yep.
And it's not very efficient. With the two-way traffic on North Street now, it's really difficult for our guys to get in and out of the garage because you just pull in and pull out. And we have to literally take 2 dump trucks and stop traffic both ways and let our guys get out in the mornings and at night when they come back. It's not really safe. It's not really efficient. And so what we're looking at is a new operations center. We have an offer to purchase on a piece of land on Chapman and Century, which is right near Public Works Department and right near the clean water plant. So we'll have all those like services together, and we'll probably be starting construction on that next year. So we'll look at moving into there probably in 2026. So the next big projects are decommissioning all of our sites, making sure that we get properly get rid of the wells that we have and those facilities that we used to have, and put those back on the market to have those be developable parcels for the city. And then we're going to relocate our operations center, and we'll ultimately probably tear down the building that we're in now. And I'm sure Jennifer up in community development is getting ready to find someone to put a development up on that corner.
I may have heard whispers of the same, but haven't heard anything yet. But
well, it's a great location. It's right close to downtown, walking distance to downtown, in the heart of our city. There's a lot of potential probably for that site. So
yeah. Well, while we will miss you as neighbors, I mean, it sounds exciting to have a new building that you'll have plenty of space for everyone. And
yes,
I mean, every now and then, just from City Hall, you see, a truck try and get out because you only have basically a long apron to kind of get in and out from. So I can see that being a challenge.
That's the problem, and it's a big challenge. So we'll get that addressed, and we'll get moved, and then after that, I'm probably a short timer here. So
I was saying, rumor has it that you're retiring soon. So do you think you'll be able to see that work in that building, or are you going to retire before that building's done?
I will probably be retired before that building gets done. We're looking at sometime early next year.
Okay.
That I'll be retiring, and I'm not going to be gone completely. I will, in March I'll be gone. I'll be retired, but I'll still be available for, anybody to call and get information and talk to somebody new or try to mentor.
Right. I mean, you've been an expert here for so long. It's
for a while. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But I've been I've been working in municipal government for over 35 years. So it's been a while. My pension is maxed out, and it's
good enough reason as any.
Time to look for new opportunities.
So you say, do you have any plans for retirement at this point?
Not at this point. I'm sure my wife, who is retired, I'll drive her nuts if I'm at home with her all the time.
So you need a couple hobbies is what it sounds like.
I'll need something to do. I'm thinking I'll work part-time somewhere to fill up some of the time.
Yeah.
I'm 57, so I have plenty of working years left. So I'm thinking I'll work part-time somewhere to just fill up some space. And I love to golf, so I'm sure I'll be out on the links.
Always a great option. Looking back in your career, I mean, you've given us a lot of lists, and I think I might know the answers for this one already. But what would be your most memorable moment, or what would be your biggest accomplishment with the water utility?
Well, obviously, it's the Great Lakes water. I look back and I thank God every day the mayor was at the event where they actually voted to give us water, and that was June 21st of 2016. Our mayor was there, and that is the culmination in 2016. That was the culmination of 13 years of work, and we finally got the yes, and I was overcome. I couldn't even talk, and the press it was ridiculous. There's a picture of the mayor with all the cameras and everybody. Press looked at me and I just pointed to the mayor, and they were around him immediately. It looked like a football player at a locker after a Super Bowl victory.
Wow.
It was crazy how many cameras and microphones were pointed at him and in front of him. And I actually just turned around and looked at him, and I walked out of the room. And I was like, let him take care of that. I'll talk to the press later. And it was a very emotional day, and that had to be the biggest moment of my career. And then, obviously the culmination of all the construction work that you put in. The thing that was different about construction is that you saw it happening, and you knew what the end game was. So you knew that, okay, I need a pipe from A to B, I need this facility built, and I need a pipe going from B to C. And so you could monitor that progression and see that happening and see that ultimately coming through. And, we started construction, and, we had the event to start to celebrate the completion of the project, and it was that was another emotional day. Again, it's a long time you're working on this project,
right,
and finally you're done, and it's kind of anticlimactic when you push the button and you start moving the water, because you've done all the studies and everything went as expected. It was pretty satisfying for us to work through that, but you look back on all that work and it's like, wow, we did this. And the mayor and I talk and reminisce sometimes about our trips to the other states and the conversations we had and the meetings we had. It was really intense at times and pretty incredible that we made it through it. And again, our mayor, played a huge part in this, and being able to go with me to all these other states. And it was the two of us that sold the project. And people always think we have all these consultants and everybody working on everything. But, it was the two of us that got in the car and drove to Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and came back to Wisconsin. And we are the ones that met with the staff. It was just the two of us. And so they could see who Waukesha was and that we really did need the water.
Yeah.
Then we met with New York and Minnesota also. And I think those meetings were the most critical meetings that we had throughout the entire project before we got the approval. And then once we got the approval, again, the mayor stepped up, and I went to him when Milwaukee came to us, and I told him, here's the deal. Milwaukee wants to sell us water. I think we have to look at it. And, we talked. He played the heavy, was like, hey, hold on a second. We need to have this much savings. We need to have this benefit for our residents. And I went back to Milwaukee and negotiated that. And those were some intense meetings. I went to every year. One of my favorite stories. Every year I do a cookout at the utility with the employees, and I grill out chickens, and sometimes we do chicken and ribs, and I grill pretty much all morning, and then we have a lunch. Well, I had a negotiating session with Milwaukee after that lunch, and I wasn't able to shower before I went there. So I went there smelling like I had just grilled all this food. And I walked in there, and I was just done. I was done negotiating. I was done fooling around. It was time to say either say you're going to provide us water or you're not. You gotta step up to the plate and play with us, or you're gonna we go to the bullpen and we go to Oak Creek. And so I basically said in that meeting, I'm done. And I got up to walk out, and they were like, hold on a second, let's see if we can get something worked out here. And I told them what the mayor had said, and I told them where we needed to be, and we were able to pound it out right at that time. And we, had I not been grilling all morning and been mad and all sweaty and just ready to give up and punt, and we needed to make a decision. There's a million stories like that throughout this entire project. And again, the mayor, has been instrumental from the beginning through from the approval through the negotiation to the startup. He's been instrumental in this whole, and the Common Council. I don't know that there was one vote I think that was not unanimous, and that was 15-1, and that was Eric Payne. He voted against it, and I give him crap to this day. He wanted to have one more public hearing before he voted. He wanted to have one more public hearing, and I was like, we don't have time for another public hearing, Eric. We've been out here communicating with the public so much. I don't know what else we can put out there. And so he voted against it, but it was 15-1 in favor. And I think that's the only non-unanimous vote that we had on this. And it was one person that voted against it.
Yeah.
So our council, our commission, and the mayor, all the leadership here throughout our city, throughout the vision that they had throughout this entire process has been incredible. And I really thank them for all of their support, because without their support and without knowing that I had that support behind me, this project probably wouldn't be where it is today.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously we have to thank you as well for, you and your team's sleepless nights, I imagine, especially as, this all got up, we would have had probably radium water and maybe a Supreme Court lawsuit if you weren't pushing for a good support and making sure that, everyone's protected with their drinking water. So thank you for that.
Yes,
and thank you for your thanks your team and your leadership for that.
So now do we get to the fun stuff?
Yeah,
Well,
a couple more fun stuff.
Ask you a more deeper question.
Question first.
It's on our fun questions.
Okay.
But if you could go back in time and tell your younger self some words of advice, what would you say?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, boy, that's a good question. I should have read these questions before I came here. I think I would tell myself to be patient, be a listener. I think we lose that, have lost that listening capability a lot of times. We have it in our mind that we know what's right or that what we want the answer to be. And a lot of times we approach things and we want to understand what the other, or we want the other party to hear our side and come to the conclusion that we've come to. But I think it's really important for us to listen to other perspectives and understand what those other perspectives were. There were probably a lot of headaches that we went through in this process that had I just listened to the DNR and kind of took that direction, there was a lot of people that were providing advice I made a lot of friends at the DNR, and there were a lot of people that would call me up and say, hey, Dan, you just need to take a step back and look at this approach. And the art of listening is something that I would tell my former self to take back, or to step back and listen every once in a while. And I think that's something that everybody can relate to. I think, you see it today in politics especially, and I'm not one side or the other, but it's like listen to what the other side has to say. The art of compromise, compromising is, again, I think it's an art that's lost right now, and especially in the political environment. And I don't want to get political, but I think it's something that's lost, where the way we got to where we are today is through a number of series of compromises.
Right.
One side and the other, saying what they thought, the other, and you compromise and you're able to move the country forward. And right now, and even the local government and even at work, we have to listen to what our people are saying and they understand the art of compromise and that there might be a compromise solution. So I think I'd tell my younger self to, don't be afraid to compromise, listen to what other people have to say, but be firm in your values and make sure that you stay true to your values. And I think I was able to do that, ultimately getting us through this project.
Good. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you made me think. You didn't tell me I was going to have to think at this thing.
Yeah, right.
Shall we go through the rapid fires and make them think even quicker?
All right, we'll go through some a little bit easier ones. So you'll just be picking one or the other. If you want to defend your point, you can, but you don't have to. All right, are you an early bird or a night owl?
Probably a night owl that likes to get up early, that gets up early.
That is a unique combination.
People laugh at me. I will be sending emails out or texting people 11, 11:30, 12 at night, but I'll be up at 6 in the morning. Mm-hmm. My wife always says I'm a person that doesn't need much sleep. Every once in a while I'll sleep in, but typically I'm up late. My mind seems to work more at night. So I would say I'm more of a night owl.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Soda.
All right. What's your go-to soda then?
Diet Mountain Dew.
Okay, good.
Great option.
Favorite season of the year?
Oh, it's got to be summer because I love to golf.
Good. Yeah, I'm a summer person. What is your go-to comfort food?
Well, everyone will tell you any candy. I love candy. So I know where every candy bowl is at the utility. And
Are there certain candy bowls you visit more often than not?
I'm a fair game. All candy's fair game. People know I don't like fruit is not my favorite. I don't like berries. And people don't understand it. I don't like strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. I'm not a berry person. Mm-hmm. I like your watermelon, grapes. I like other melons. So people know when they bring in the birthday treats, because we have a birthday club at work. You don't bring in your own birthday treat. Somebody brings it in for you.
Oh, that's fun.
So they know that I don't like berries and I don't like nuts. I like cashews, peanuts, and almonds, but I don't like nuts in my stuff, mm-hmm. and I like chocolate. So I like anything from chewy to chocolate. I like it. Probably my comfort food is gotta be candy.
Candy. All right. So then do you like chocolate candies more or the fruity candies more?
Oh, that's tough. Probably the chewy, fruity candies.
Yeah. So you go more for Skittles than M&Ms?
Probably.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs. Definitely.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving. I love Christmas, and I love Memorial Day because it's the sign for summer. But Thanksgiving is the holiday where you get together with family and you don't have that, all the gifts that you have to open or exchange, mm-hmm. and all the pressures of buying stuff and all that. Thanksgiving is just a time to get together and enjoy and have a meal with your family. And
yeah.
I really, really enjoy Thanksgiving a lot.
Well said. Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Favorite sport to watch or play?
Oh, I love football and I love baseball. Our family is a big baseball family, and so like the Brewers are huge right now. They're on every night in our house, but we also love the Packers and love football. College, I've had college season tickets for the Badgers for over 30 years.
Wow. Did you make it to the Bama game then?
Yes, I did. Unfortunately,
oh, yeah. You say it's exciting going into it, and didn't go as well as it needed to.
If the quarterback doesn't get hurt,
I know they would have been so much better.
But I love to play golf. I love playing golf.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Has got to be chocolate malt at Cops.
Ooh.
It's so good. It's so good. Whenever it comes up, we always go get it. It's a must stop.
For me, that's the Beacon Schneeken at Cops. That's the
Really?
one. Yeah, they got
What
the
is that? I've never heard of that.
It's a German one, but it's almond custard with like honey in it and cake pieces,
Yep.
and then also almonds in it too.
They just had it with
Yeah, they-
chocolate malt.
Oh, okay.
It was with chocolate malt because I was gonna get it,
One of
and I was
each.
like, those two chocolate malt and that doesn't go together. But I wanted to try it.
Yeah, no, it's very good.
Huh.
They just had it.
Yeah, they just had it. I think that was on Saturday.
Not that I watch ice cream.
Now that I have a,
Well, it's one of those weird names where it's like you
Yep.
you remember that.
not that I have text notifications every time it comes up. But
Are you more of an introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert. I love talking to people. I love relating to people. So
Nice.
very much an extrovert.
Favorite type of music?
Probably 80s rock, 80s music.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
anything specific out of 80s rock?
Just that was a great time.
Yeah, there's a lot of good
80s
options.
There's a lot of good options there. 80s pop, 80s rock, 80s dance music. I like it all. I like it all.
And then your favorite color?
Probably has to be blue.
Blue.
Water utility blue.
Water utility blue.
Specifically, the water utility.
Well, not water utility because they
That's
have
teal.
Yeah, it's more of a teal.
Not that teal, but okay, that makes sense.
Probably blue. It's
Good.
probably my favorate color.
Yeah, I mean, you're wearing blue now too, so it makes sense.
Am I? See,
Yeah, we all are actually.
Yeah.
my wife has to pick out my clothes every day because I'm colorblind. So
Oh, okay.
I see colors, but the beiges and tans I am clueless on.
Yeah.
Navy and black. I went out the other day and I started going out and she's like, "What do you have on?" And I had black shorts with a navy shirt and she's like, "You look like a bruise," And so those are the things. So she always helps me every day.
Perfectly,
Put my clothes
to
perfectly
have.
valid reason.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are, I think, pretty much over on time. We got through a lot.
Yeah, a lot of good information.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you for all your service to the city of Waukesha.
Yes,
you,
thank
will,
you.
you will be missed by all of us.
I will miss it here, but hopefully you haven't seen the end of me.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Talkin' Waukesha. We hope you enjoyed diving into the heart of our city with us.
If you have a story to share or just want to say hello, reach out to us on social media at City of Waukesha on Facebook. We love hearing from our listeners.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review if you enjoyed the conversation. It really helps us spread the word.
As always, thanks for tuning in to Talkin' Waukesha, where every conversation springs to life.